Professor stood at the front of his classroom and looked at his students with all four of his eyes. He was a tall creature with blue skin and four arms that he used to gesture when he talked. Today, he had exciting news. "Class," he said, his voice deep and serious, "today we begin our most important field trip. We are going to Earth." The classroom went silent. 12 alien students of different species sat in their seats, and all of them felt a mix of fear and curiosity. Earth was the planet to join the Galactic Union. It was also the most strange. A student shivered in his seat. He was made of a jelly-like substance, and when he was nervous, his body wobbled. "Earth," he asked. "The death world." Professor nodded slowly. "Yes, the planet where creatures eat each other. The planet with storms that spin and destroy everything. The planet with mountains that explode fire. The humans live there, and somehow they not only survive but they thrive." And student with 6 legs and large black eyes clicked his mandibles together. "I have read about humans. They are soft. They have no armor. They have no claws. How do they survive on such a dangerous planet?" "That is exactly what we are going to study," Professor replied. "Your assignment is to observe human recreational behavior. We will watch what they do for fun. This will help us understand their psychology." A stone-skinned student named raised his heavy hand. He was a species that valued silence and calm. His people meditated for hours and believed that stillness was the highest form of existence. "What do humans do for fun?" he asked in his slow, rumbling voice. Professor smiled, but there was something worried in his eyes. "That is what concerns me. The reports from our scouts have been confusing. We will see for ourselves." The class boarded the observation vessel 2 hours later. The ship was small but comfortable, designed to be invisible to human technology. It could hover above any location on Earth without being detected. The students found their seats and watched through the large windows as their home planet disappeared behind them. The journey through space took only a few minutes. The ship used a jump drive that bent space and time. When the windows cleared again, the students saw a blue and green planet floating in the darkness. White clouds swirled across its surface. It looked peaceful from far away. "It looks beautiful," said a student who communicated through patterns of light that flickered across her transparent body. Her lights were soft and pink, showing that she felt calm. "Do not be fooled," Professor warned. "The beauty hides danger. Earth has more ways to kill than any planet in the known galaxy." The ship descended through the atmosphere. The students watched as the clouds parted and they saw land below. There were mountains, rivers, forests, and cities. The human cities were full of tall buildings and moving vehicles. Millions of humans lived in these places, packed together in ways that seemed impossible. The ship headed toward a specific location. Professor had chosen a place called World, which the human database described as an amusement park. The translator had difficulty with this term. The closest meaning was a place for entertainment and joy. When the ship hovered above World, the students pressed their faces against the windows. Below them, they saw something incredible. Thousands of humans moved through colorful gates into a massive area filled with strange structures. Some of these structures were buildings with bright colors and flashing lights, but others were something else entirely. Pointed with one of his wobbly arms, "What are those?" He was looking at enormous metal structures that twisted and curved through the sky. They looked like the skeletons of giant serpents frozen in impossible shapes. Rails of steel climbed high into the air, then dropped straight down, then curved into loops and spirals. "I do not know," Professor admitted. He consulted his translator device. After a moment, he read the result aloud. "It is called a roller coaster." "What does it do?" asked. Before the professor could answer, they saw something that made them all freeze. Small vehicles were attached to the rails of the roller coaster, and humans were climbing into these vehicles. They were sitting down and pulling bars across their bodies to hold themselves in place. "Are they prisoners?" asked. "No," Professor said slowly. "According to my data, they have paid money to do this. They have chosen to do this." The students watched in confusion as the vehicle full of humans began to move. It was pulled slowly up the first hill of the roller coaster by a chain mechanism. The humans sat in their seats as the vehicle climbed higher and higher into the sky. From the observation ship, the aliens could see their faces. Some humans were smiling. Others looked nervous. Some were holding the hands of other humans sitting next to them. "What happens when they reach the top?" asked. His voice was shaking and his body was wobbling more than ever. Nobody answered. They all watched in terrible silence as the vehicle reached the peak of the first hill. For one moment, it paused there, hanging at the very top. The humans inside could see the entire park spread out below them. Then the vehicle tipped forward. And it fell. The aliens gasped as the vehicle dropped straight down, moving faster and faster. The humans inside opened their mouths, and even from the observation ship, through the audio sensors, the class could hear the sound that came out. Screaming, pure, raw, terrified screaming. "They are dying," whispered in horror. "The machine has failed. We are watching them die." Professor quickly activated the emergency bioscanners. His hands were shaking as he pointed the device at the falling humans. He fully expected to document a disaster, a failure of human engineering, a tragedy. But when he looked at the readings, his 4 eyes went wide. "This cannot be correct," he muttered. The vehicle swooped through a loop, and the screaming grew even louder. The class watched in frozen horror, certain they were witnessing a catastrophe. None of them were prepared for what would happen next. The roller coaster car plunged down the steel track at incredible speed. The screaming from the humans inside filled the air like a siren. Every alien student in the observation ship felt their hearts, or whatever organs pumped their blood, beating fast with terror. Had started secreting panic fluid from his gelatinous body. This was an automatic response that his species had developed over millions of years. When it was scared, they became slippery so predators could not grab them. But there was no predator here. There was only confusion and fear. "Professor," shouted, his mandibles clicking so fast they made a buzzing sound. "We must help them. We must do something." Professor held up 2 of his hands to calm the student. "Wait, look at the scanner results." He turned the bioscanner screen so the class could see it. The readings showed the vital signs of the humans on the roller coaster. Their heart rates were very high. Their blood pressure was elevated. Adrenaline, the human chemical for fear and survival, was flooding their bodies. "You see," said, "they are in extreme distress. Their bodies are in survival mode." "Yes," Professor agreed, "but look at these other readings." He pointed to different lines on the screen. These showed other chemicals in the human bodies: dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. The class had studied these chemicals in their xenobiology courses. They knew what they meant. "Those are pleasure chemicals," said, her body flickering with confused yellow light. "Those are the chemicals that human brains produce when they are happy." "That is correct," Professor said quietly. The class looked back out the window. The roller coaster car had finished its first drop and was now racing through a series of turns and smaller hills. The humans inside were still screaming, but something had changed. The sound was different now. It was not just terror. There was something else mixed with it. The car entered a loop, and the humans were turned upside down for a brief moment. Their screams reached a new peak. Then the car came out of the loop and began to slow down as it approached the station where it had started. Every alien in the observation ship leaned forward. They needed to see what would happen next. Would the humans collapse? Would they cry? Would they need medical attention? The car stopped at the platform. Safety bars lifted automatically. The humans began to climb out of their seats. They were laughing. One young woman with long black hair that had become wild and messy from the wind was laughing so hard that she had to hold onto the railing for support. Her face was red. Tears were running down her cheeks, but she was not crying from sadness or fear. She was crying from joy. She shouted to her friends who were climbing out behind her, "That was amazing. Let us go again." A tall young man, apparently named, was grinning so wide that his teeth were showing. He pumped his fist in the air. "Yes, the drop was incredible. My stomach went up into my chest." "Again," whispered. His compound eyes were so wide they looked like they might fall out of his head. They wished to repeat the near-death experience. They wished to do it again. The stone-skinned had not moved since the car first dropped. He sat perfectly still, which was normal for his species, but his eyes were fixed on the humans below. "I do not understand," he rumbled. "My people spend our entire lives trying to achieve peace. We meditate to calm our hearts. We seek stillness and quiet. These humans are doing the opposite. They are making their hearts race on purpose. They are seeking chaos." Professor was writing notes as fast as his 4 hands could move. "This is extraordinary. They are not simply tolerating fear. They are enjoying it. They are seeking it out. They are paying money to feel terrified." The class continued to watch. More cars came and went on the roller coaster. Every single time, the pattern was the same. Humans would climb in looking excited or nervous. The car would climb the hill. The humans would scream during the drops and loops, and when it was over, they would exit laughing and smiling, many of them immediately running to get in line to do it again. A small human, clearly a child, exited one of the cars holding his father's hand. The child was bouncing up and down with excitement. He shouted, using the Korean word for father, "Can we go on the bigger one next? Please, please." The father laughed and ruffled the child's hair. "Okay, Minyu, but first let us get some food. You need energy for more screaming." "They train their young for this," said. His voice was barely a whisper. "They teach their children to seek terror." Lights were flickering rapidly, showing her intense thought process. Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps this is training. On a planet as dangerous as Earth, humans who could not handle fear would die. So they evolved to practice fear. They make it into a game so they can be ready for real danger. Professor stopped writing. He looked at with new respect. "That is an interesting theory. It would explain much about human behavior. They are perhaps the only species in the galaxy that deliberately seeks out the feeling of fear." The class sat in thoughtful silence. Below them, the amusement park was full of thousands of humans enjoying themselves. There were other strange structures too. One was a tall tower that lifted humans high into the air and then dropped them straight down. Another spun humans in circles until they could barely walk straight. Another shot humans into the air with elastic ropes attached to their bodies. Every single one of these machines was designed to scare humans, and every single one had a long line of humans waiting for their turn. "I need to understand this better," Professor announced. "We cannot observe from a distance anymore. We must go down there. We must walk among them. We must see this terror-joy with our own eyes." His entire body shook. Go down there, among the fear-seekers, among the creatures who scream for fun. "Yes," the professor said, "that is exactly what we must do." He began preparing the hollow disguises that would make them look like humans. The students looked at each other with worried expressions. They were about to enter the world of the most terrifying species in the galaxy. The humans. The hollow disguises were not perfect, but they would have to do. Professor looked at himself in the reflection of the ship's window. He now appeared to be a tall human man with gray hair and a friendly face. His 4 arms had been hidden by the hologram, though he could still use 2 of them if he was careful. "Remember," he told his students, "do not touch anyone. The disguises are only visual. If a human touches you, they will feel your true form." Looked at his own disguise. He appeared to be a round human man with a bald head. It was the best the technology could do with his gelatinous shape. looked like a thin human woman, though his movements were still jerky and insect-like. Disguise made him look like a very large, very muscular human man. This fit his stone body well enough. The four of them descended from the ship, using a transport beam that placed them behind a building where no humans could see. Then they walked out into the park. The noise hit them first. Humans were everywhere and they were all talking and laughing and shouting. Music played from speakers hidden in every corner. Children ran past them, their small legs pumping as they chased each other. The smell of food filled the air, strange and sweet and salty all at once. "There are so many of them," whispered. "How do they not bump into each other?" "They have some kind of system," Professor observed. "Watch how they move. They somehow know when to step left and when to step right. It is like they can read each other's minds." They walked deeper into the park. Every few minutes they would hear screaming from somewhere nearby. The first time it happened, all four of them froze in panic, but no one around them reacted. The humans just kept walking and talking as if the screams were normal. Because to them, the screams were normal. They stopped near a ride called the Giant Swing. It was a massive machine that held humans in harnesses and swung them back and forth, higher and higher, until they were nearly upside down at the peak of each swing. The screaming from this ride was constant and loud. The aliens watched a group of humans exit the ride. Most of them were young, probably the human age called teenager. They stumbled down the exit ramp on shaky legs, holding onto each other for support. One girl in the group was crying. Actual tears were running down her face. Her friends gathered around her with worried expressions. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. The girl named wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She took a deep, shaky breath, and then she smiled, a huge smile that showed all her teeth. "That was the best thing I have ever done in my entire life," she said. Her friends laughed with relief, and the whole group began talking at once about their favorite moments. Was still crying, but now she was also laughing at the same time. It was impossible to tell which emotion was stronger. Stood completely still, watching this scene. "She weeps from joy," he said in his deep, rumbling voice. "Her terror has brought her happiness. My people spend generations trying to achieve inner peace, and this human child has found extreme happiness by throwing herself through the air on a machine." Professor was writing notes as fast as he could. The emotional range of humans is remarkable. They can feel terror and joy at the same time. They can cry and laugh in the same breath. No other known species has this ability. Was not paying attention to the professor. He was watching a small human child walk past them. The child was eating something pink and fluffy on a stick, was so distracted that he did not watch where he was going. His disguised body bumped into the child, causing the pink fluffy food to fall to the ground. "Oh no," said in panic. "I am sorry, I am very sorry." The child looked up for a moment, was terrified. What if the child could see through the disguise? What if the child started screaming? What if other humans came to investigate? But the child just smiled. "Cool costume, mister," he said. "Are you one of the park characters?" Before could answer, a woman walked up behind the child. She was the child's mother, a kind-looking woman with short hair and warm eyes. "Do not bother the nice man," she said. Then she looked at and smiled. "I am sorry. He is very excited today." "It is no problem," managed to say. "Why is he excited?" The woman, whose name tag identified her as, laughed softly. "We are about to ride his first big coaster. He has been waiting all year for this. He is finally tall enough." Looked at the small child. The boy could not have been more than 7 or 8 Earth years old. "You train your young for this?" asked. "You teach them to ride the terror machines?" Looked confused by his choice of words, but she nodded. "Of course, how else will they learn to be brave? Life is scary sometimes. Jobs are scary. School is scary. Growing up is scary. If can learn to face a roller coaster, he can learn to face anything." She took her son's hand and led him toward the entrance of a smaller roller coaster, one designed for children. The boy was bouncing with excitement, not fear. Professor had heard the entire conversation. He stood very still, processing what he had just learned. They do not just seek fear for fun, he said slowly. They use it to teach courage. They believe that practicing fear makes them stronger. They are deliberately building brave children. Clicked his mandibles nervously. But why? Why would any species want their young to seek danger? The answer came to Professor like a flash of light. Because they are from Earth, the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. If human children grew up afraid of everything, they would never survive. So humans have evolved a remarkable solution. They have learned to transform fear into power. They have learned to turn terror into joy. He looked around at the park full of screaming, laughing humans. They are not crazy, he whispered. They are brilliant. The 4 aliens returned to the observation ship with their minds full of new information. The other students immediately surrounded them, asking questions faster than anyone could answer. What was it like down there? Were the humans dangerous? Did anyone discover their true forms? Professor raised all 4 of his hands to quiet the class. Please, settle down. We have much to discuss. He connected his notes to the main display screen so everyone could see. Images of humans on roller coasters appeared, along with data from the bioscanners and recordings of conversations. What we witnessed today challenges everything we thought we knew about intelligent species, the professor began. Humans do not simply tolerate fear. They do not merely survive frightening experiences. They actively create situations that cause extreme terror, and then they enjoy those situations. A young student raised a wobbly hand. But Professor, that makes no sense. Fear is supposed to keep creatures alive. Fear is supposed to make you run away from danger. Why would any species run toward it? That is exactly what we must understand, Professor replied. The student had been silent since they returned. Her body was flickering with deep purple light, showing that she was thinking very hard. Finally, she spoke, her lights forming patterns that the translator converted to words. I have a theory, she said. On most planets, intelligent species evolved in relatively safe environments. Our ancestors learned to avoid the few dangers that existed, but Earth is different. Earth is covered in danger, predators, poison, disease, natural disasters, extreme weather. There is no safe place on Earth, so human ancestors could not avoid fear. They had to live with it every single day. The class listened in silence, continued. If you cannot escape fear, you have only 2 choices. You can be destroyed by it or you can learn to control it. Humans chose the second option. They learned to master their own fear response. They turned it into a tool, and these amusement parks are how they practice. Professor nodded slowly. You suggest they have domesticated fear itself. Like how some species domesticate animals, humans have domesticated their own terror. Yes, said, and it has made them incredibly dangerous. A species that can control their own fear can do anything. As if to prove her point, something was happening below in the park. The aliens looked out the windows and saw a group of young humans gathered at the base of the tallest roller coaster in the park. It was called and it was truly terrifying. The first drop was nearly vertical, falling almost straight down for what seemed like forever. A young man was standing at the front of the group. His friends were pushing him toward the entrance, but he was shaking his head and backing away. Even from the observation ship, the aliens could see that he was terrified. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. His whole body was stiff with fear. Look at that one, said. He does not want to ride. His fear has defeated him. But then something happened. A young woman from the group stepped forward. She had a gentle face and kind eyes. She walked up to the terrified young man and took his hand. The translator picked up their conversation. The woman said softly, "Look at me." The young man named looked at her. He was trying very hard not to cry. "I cannot do this. I am too scared. Everyone will laugh at me." Shook her head. "No one will laugh at you. Being scared is normal. Being scared means you are about to do something brave." "But what if I panic? What if I scream like a baby? What if I embarrass myself?" Squeezed his hand. "Then you will panic and scream and feel embarrassed, and then the ride will be over, and you will have done it anyway. That is what courage is. It is not about being unafraid. It is about being afraid and doing it anyway." She stepped closer to him. "I will be right beside you. We face it together. You are not alone." Stood still for a long moment. His friends had stopped pushing and were watching quietly. The whole group seemed to understand that this was an important moment. Finally took a deep breath. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was something new in his expression. He was still scared, but now there was also determination. "Okay," he whispered, "together." The class watched in complete silence and walked through the entrance. They climbed into the front car and pulled the safety bars down over their bodies. Was gripping the bar so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Held his hand with one of hers and the safety bar with the other. The car began to climb. Every alien student pressed against the windows. Even Professor had stopped writing notes. The whole class was holding their breath. The car climbed higher and higher. His face was white with fear. He was breathing fast. Kept talking to him, though the translator could not pick up her words at this distance. Whatever she was saying was listening. The car reached the top. It paused for one terrible second at the peak. Then it dropped. Screamed. It was a raw, primal scream, full of pure terror. Screamed too. Their voices mixed together as they plunged toward the earth at impossible speed. But then halfway down the drop, something changed. Scream transformed. The fear was still there, but now there was something else. His mouth, which had been stretched wide in terror, curved upward. He was screaming, but he was also smiling. And then he was laughing. Tears were streaming from his eyes as the wind whipped past his face, but they were tears of joy. He threw his arms up into the air, releasing the safety bar, embracing the fall with his whole body. And he howled. Not a scream of fear, but a howl of triumph, a howl of victory, a howl that said, "I am stronger than my fear." Was laughing beside him, her hair flying wild in the wind. Their hands found each other again, fingers intertwining as they raced through loops and turns. When the car finally returned to the station, climbed out on shaky legs. His friends surrounded him, cheering and clapping him on the back. He was crying and laughing at the same time, unable to speak, overcome with emotions that no alien word could properly describe. Hugged him tightly. "You did it," she said. "You were so brave." Hugged her back. "I could not have done it without you." In the observation ship, the alien students sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something they had never seen before on any planet in the galaxy. They had watched a human transform his own fear into joy. And somehow, that was the most terrifying thing of all. 3 days later, the observation ship landed at the Galactic Academy. The students filed out slowly, their minds still processing everything they had witnessed on Earth. Some of them had not slept since the trip. Others had been unable to eat. What they had seen had changed them in ways they did not fully understand. Professor went straight to his office. The Galactic Council was waiting for his report. They had been waiting since before the field trip even began. Humanity was the member of the Galactic Union, and every species in the galaxy wanted to know the same thing. Were humans stable? Were they safe? Could they be trusted? The professor sat at his desk and began to write. His 4 hands moved across the keyboard as he organized his thoughts into words. When he was finished, he read through the report one final time. Then he sent it to the council. The report was shared with every member species of the Galactic Union within hours. It was translated into thousands of languages and distributed to billions of beings across countless planets. And everywhere it was read, It caused the same reaction: shock, disbelief, and a new kind of respect. This is what the report said. To the honored members of the Galactic Council, I have completed my psychological assessment of the human species of Earth. My findings are unlike anything in our recorded history. My students and I traveled to Earth to observe human recreational behavior. We visited a facility that humans call an amusement park. We expected to see humans engaging in peaceful, relaxing activities, as most intelligent species do when they seek entertainment. What we witnessed was something entirely different. Humans have built massive machines called roller coasters. These machines lift humans high into the air and then drop them at extreme speeds. The machines twist and turn and flip humans upside down. They are designed to trigger every fear response in the human body. When humans ride these machines, they scream. The screaming is loud and constant. It sounds exactly like the screaming of a creature facing death. But here is what makes humans unique. Their screams are not screams of genuine terror. They are screams of delight. Humans do not merely tolerate fear. They seek it out. They pay money to experience it. They wait in long lines for hours just for the chance to be terrified for 2 or 3 minutes. And when the terror is over, they do not collapse or require medical attention. They laugh. They celebrate. They immediately return to the line to do it again. Most remarkably, humans train their children to do this. We observed human parents bringing very young offspring to these fear machines. The parents encouraged their children to face the terror. They praised them when they succeeded. They told them that learning to be afraid was the same as learning to be brave. On any other planet, this behavior would be classified as insanity. But on Earth, it is normal. It is healthy. It is celebrated. The reason for this is simple and terrifying. Earth is a death world. It is filled with natural disasters, predators, poisons, and countless other dangers. Human ancestors could not survive by avoiding fear because fear was everywhere. So they evolved a different strategy. They learned to control their fear. They learned to transform it from a weakness into a strength. The amusement parks are training grounds. Humans go there to practice being afraid. They condition their bodies and minds to handle terror without being paralyzed by it. And as a result, they have become a species that fear itself cannot defeat. I witnessed a young human male who was terrified of riding the largest roller coaster. His fear was visible and extreme. A normal being would have walked away. But this human did not walk away. With the support of a companion, he climbed into the machine, faced his fear directly, and transformed it into joy. He emerged from the experience changed, stronger, more confident. This is what humans do. They take the thing that should destroy them and turn it into the thing that makes them powerful. My recommendation to the Galactic Council is as follows. Do not underestimate humanity. Do not try to intimidate them. Do not threaten them or test them or challenge them unless you are prepared for the consequences. A species that has learned to scream with joy while falling toward the ground at terminal velocity is not a species that will back down from a fight. A species that brings its children to terror machines and calls it a fun family outing is not a species that knows how to surrender. They have conquered fear itself. They have turned it into entertainment. They ride it for fun, and they emerge laughing. If we are wise, we will befriend these humans. We will learn from them. We will try to understand how they have achieved what no other species has achieved. And we will never, ever make them our enemies. Respectfully submitted. Professor, Department of Xenobiology, Galactic Academy. The report ended there, but its effects rippled across the galaxy for years to come. On 100 different planets, alien scientists began studying human psychology with new intensity. On a dozen worlds, leaders quietly revised their military strategies, adding notes about the inadvisability of provoking humanity. In diplomatic meetings throughout the galaxy, Ambassadors treated human representatives with a new level of respect. And on Earth, completely unaware of the impact they had made, humans continued to do what they had always done. They built bigger roller coasters. They invented new ways to scare themselves. They brought their children to amusement parks and taught them that being afraid was the first step to being brave. They screamed. They laughed. They conquered their fears, one ride at a time. And somewhere in the galaxy, a professor with 4 arms and blue skin watched recordings of his field trip and shook his head in wonder. "Remarkable," he whispered, "absolutely remarkable." In the recording, and were stepping off for the 3rd time, their arms around each other, their faces glowing with happiness. Their screams of terror had become screams of triumph. And that, Professor thought, was the most human thing of all.